Another business entity which is becoming more popular, in fact is the most popular today, is an entity called the Limited Liability Company, or LLC. And this probably became popular maybe 8 to 10 years ago, and the idea is that at that time the Subchapter S corporation was the most favored form of new entrepreneurs going into business. But many people thought that it was too rigid and had too many requirements, and there was a need for more flexibility. And some of these requirements were that you could only have 35 shareholders, that the IRS would have to approve transfers and changes and different things like that, which probably don't affect most small businesses, but some people thought it was too confining. So they developed a new entity which was called a Limited Liability Company. And basically a limited liability company is a cross between a Subchapter S corporation and a partnership. The documents, when they're prepared, are pretty much the same as either one. In fact, an entrepreneur can indicate if they want the LLC to be more like a corporation or more like a partnership. The reason for a corporation is limited liability. The reason for the partnership is increased flexibility and tax benefits. Basically, you obtain an LLC status just like you become a corporation. You complete a document called an Articles of Organization, where you fill out the name and address and the principal, the first board of directors, and you file that with the Secretary of State's office, along with a filing fee of $180 to $190. And you're automatically a limited liability company. Your name needs to be unique. If there's somebody else in the state of Minnesota using that name, they'll ask that you change the name. The records will be public, so people can go to the Secretary of State's office and get information about your LLC. Like a corporation, a benefit of an LLC is that it gives you liability protection. If you have debts that you can't handle or there are liability issues, your creditors, for the most part, will be restricted to going for liability against the LLC and not you individually. Now, there are some exceptions to that, which we'll talk about, but that's the general idea. Another benefit of the LLC is that it gives the flexibility of a partnership. Multiple people going into business together can actually enter into agreement about what terms they want to live by. It can be any terms you want to be. That's the flexibility portion. And it's not taxed as a separate entity, so there's pass-through taxation, and so you're paying the very minimum income tax. In some cases, where you have unrelated people that are getting together in the limited liability structure, they want to have an agreement between them, and this is called a member control agreement. Some people refer to it as a buy-sell agreement. And basically, it'll be an agreement between the owners of the LLC that addresses issues that come up. The biggest issue is, what if a member wants to get out of the business? How can he be bought out? What prices are? How are they going to determine a purchase price to be bought out? What happens if one of the members dies? What happens if one of the members wants to move out of state? Can you ensure that essentially that person's interest will go to his or her heirs in the case of death or a case of moving out of the area, that they'll be compensated for the work they put into the business? The other thing that a sound limited liability company, as well as a corporation, will have is called a minute book. The owners will meet regularly and essentially transact business. You can be monthly or probably at a minimum annually. And when they transact business, they'll essentially keep minutes of the different meetings and put it in a book, and it becomes the minute book. And that's important for a couple reasons. One, it leaves a written record of the action taken by the business, which is helpful for the business owners in case there's a dispute or a question later on. But also it's important for third parties looking in at the operations of the business, such as the Internal Revenue Service or the Minnesota Department of Revenue, or creditors that want to know, well, was this business really acting as a limited liability company? Is it entitled to its liability protection. And one way they determine that is, how closely did the corporation observe certain formalities of running a business? And one of those could be determined by minutes. Minutes help answer that question. So when we set up a new limited liability company or corporation, I stress to the owners essentially the importance of keeping regular minutes, signing documents essentially as a corporate officer as opposed to an individual, and other strategies that can help preserve that liability protection.